If you recognize even half of these traits, you're part of what I call the psychological elite. In his decades of research, Carl Jung discovered that less than 5% of the population develops what he termed differentiated consciousness, a way of experiencing reality that most people never achieve. Fascinatingly, these rare individuals often spend their entire lives thinking something is wrong with them. Jung documented countless cases of people with extraordinary psychological depth who had been convinced by society that their intensity, sensitivity, and refusal to accept shallow answers were character flaws rather than signs of exceptional mental sophistication. Jung realized that these rare personalities aren't just different, they're evolutionarily advanced, representing humanity's next stage of consciousness development. The traits that make you feel like an outsider aren't defects, they're upgrades. You're not broken, you're breakthrough. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what if who you truly are doesn't fit into society's narrow definitions of normal? What if your intensity, your depth, and your refusal to settle for surface-level existence are evidence of what I call advanced psychological architecture? Throughout history, the individuals who pushed humanity forward were those who couldn't accept the status quo. They were the ones who questioned everything, felt deeply, and envisioned possibilities that others couldn't even imagine. Tragically, society often teaches these exceptional individuals to suppress their greatest strengths. You may have been told you're too sensitive, too intense, or too complicated. Jung understood that these supposed flaws are actually signs of what he called psychological differentiation, the rare ability to perceive and process reality at levels most people never develop. Modern neuroscience supports his insights. Dr. Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive people shows that around 20% of the population processes sensory information more deeply. But Jung identified an even rarer group, individuals whose entire psychological structure operates at an advanced level. Many of these personalities hide their gifts, dimming their light because others find it threatening. The first sign of psychological rarity is emotional depth that feels almost supernatural. Jung found that emotionally intense individuals don't just feel emotions. They experience affect-tone complexes, waves of feeling that resonate deeply. This isn't instability, it's emotional sophistication. You feel tension in a room before anyone speaks. You sense unspoken truths, and your psyche is wired for depth, not small talk. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But for you, every interaction becomes a doorway to hidden truths." The second sign is sacred curiosity. Most people live unconsciously, accepting societal programming without question. But you can't help but dig deeper. You don't just ask what, you ask why. Why do people tolerate relationships that diminish them? Why do we accept broken systems? Why do we settle for shallow conversations? Jung called this ability to see beyond current limitations the transcendent function. Your questions may make others uncomfortable because they threaten illusions, but they are a sign of your depth. The third sign is conscious independence. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely," and you've learned to do this, often through adversity. Rare personalities develop individuated consciousness earlier than most, building an identity that isn't defined by others' opinions. Your solitude isn't loneliness, it's sanctuary. Jung called this individuation, the process of integrating every part of yourself, even the shadow, to become whole. Sign 4 is hyperperceptive awareness. Jung identified intuition as a core psychological function, calling it perception via the unconscious. You don't just see people, you read them. You pick up on micro-expressions, energy shifts, and unspoken pain. This heightened perception isn't paranoia, it's advanced sensitivity, though without boundaries, it can exhaust you. The fifth sign is a craving for meaning over everything else. You cannot fake enthusiasm for shallow goals or relationships built on convenience. Jung observed that living against your psychological type creates neurotic symptoms. Your psyche rebels against inauthenticity. You're wired to seek truth and authenticity, and that makes you an evolutionary catalyst for human growth. The sixth sign is that you've outgrown people and environments repeatedly. Jung described psychological growth as a cycle of death and rebirth. Old versions of you fall away, and some people feel uncomfortable with your growth because they miss who you were. But evolution is irreversible. Once you see through illusions, you cannot unsee. Sign 7 is transformational presence. Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Your presence itself can be healing. You create psychological holding space, allowing others to feel deeply seen. But this gift requires discernment. Without boundaries, you can exhaust yourself trying to save others. Sign 8 is sensing a purpose you can't yet define. Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. You feel a restless pull towards something greater, and this is evidence of your creative potential seeking expression. Ignoring this calling can lead to depression or emptiness, because your purpose isn't just personal, it's transpersonal. You're here to serve the evolution of human consciousness itself. Jung described 3 stages of development for rare personalities. Stage 1 is the unconscious outsider. You feel different, see your traits as problems, and attempt to fit in, often developing what Jung called persona rigidity. Stage 2 is the awakening individual. You begin to own your gifts, integrate your shadow, and stop apologizing for your depth. Stage 3 is individuated consciousness. You live authentically and serve as a beacon for others, inspiring collective growth. But Jung warned that even rare personalities must face their shadow. There's the superiority shadow, where you see your rarity as proof of being better, leading to arrogance. There's the messianic shadow, where you feel obligated to save everyone, causing burnout. And there's the martyrdom shadow, where you believe your depth means you must suffer. The goal isn't to eliminate these tendencies, but to make them conscious. In relationships, rare personalities often attract 3 types of people. Light seekers, who are drawn to your energy, but haven't done their own work. Light dimmers, who feel threatened by your intensity. And light matchers, equally developed souls who meet you at your depth. Jung emphasized the need for psychological discrimination, the ability to discern who can meet you authentically. With psychological rarity comes responsibility. You're not just different for yourself, you're different for the sake of humanity's evolution. Jung saw rare individuals as bridges between the unconscious and conscious realms, pioneers of human potential. Your struggles, loneliness, and resistance to conformity are proof of your role in expanding what it means to be human. Every time you've been criticized for being too much, you were challenging limited worldviews. Every time you've chosen authenticity over acceptance, you've raised the bar for relationships. This path is often lonely because few have walked it, but Jung urged rare individuals to embrace their uniqueness without needing validation. Not everyone will understand your depth, and that's okay. When you fully embody your gifts, you attract others who are ready to embrace their own. You don't need everyone. You need the few who resonate with your consciousness. Jung warned against psychological inflation, believing that being rare makes you superior rather than responsible. True power is balanced with humility. Your sensitivity is intelligence. Your intensity is needed, and your refusal to settle is necessary for progress. Jung predicted that traits considered rare today will become more common as humanity evolves, meaning you're part of the leading edge of human consciousness. Your life isn't just your own, it's an expansion of what it means to be human. Jung's final insight was this: the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. For people like you, becoming yourself means embracing your psychological sophistication. Your emotional depth is intelligence. Your questioning is consciousness. Your independence is sovereignty. Your intuition is clarity. Your search for meaning is your soul's compass. Your evolution is proof of growth. Your presence is transformation. And your undefined purpose is potential-seeking expression. If these signs resonate, you're not just different. You're part of humanity's next evolutionary step. Jung studied people like you because he knew you weren't meant to shrink. You were meant to lead humanity toward deeper awareness. The world doesn't need you to be smaller or quieter. It needs you to be rare, proud, and fully alive. If you're ready to embrace your uniqueness, say, "I am evolutionary consciousness in human form," and share this with someone who needs to remember their own rarity. You're not too much. The world is too little. And people like you are here to change that. There's a rare kind of person walking this earth. Someone who often feels out of place, misunderstood, and even convinced that something is wrong with them. But what if those very traits are not flaws, but signs of an extraordinary mind? Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, dedicated his life to understanding the complexities of human nature. In his research, he discovered a personality type so rare that fewer than 5% of people truly embody it. Jung called this state differentiated consciousness, a level of awareness that rises far beyond what most people will ever experience. And yet, the tragedy is that many of these individuals spend their entire lives feeling broken, when in reality, they are evidence of humanity's next stage of evolution. If you've ever felt like you see things other people miss, like you sense emotions in a room before anyone speaks, or like you're living on a different frequency, Jung would say you're not broken, you're breakthrough. He once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But for people like you, becoming who you truly are often feels more like a battle than a privilege. From an early age, rare personalities stand out. Their intensity, their depth, and their relentless curiosity often make others uncomfortable. They're told they're too sensitive, too intense, or too complicated, and so they learn to dim their light, to fit in, to silence their deepest truths. But Jung believed this suppression was one of humanity's greatest mistakes. He saw these individuals not as misfits, but as pioneers, people who could see through illusions, question societal programming, and uncover truth that others weren't ready to face. What makes you different, he argued, is precisely what makes you essential. Throughout history, the people who moved humanity forward were never the ones who fit neatly into boxes. They were the thinkers, the dreamers, the rebels, and the visionaries. Your traits may not make sense to the world, but Jung understood that they represent an advanced psychological architecture, a new way of being human. Modern science has begun to catch up with Jung's insights. Researchers like Dr. Elaine Aron have identified highly sensitive people, those who process sensory and emotional information more deeply than others. They make up about 20% of the population, but Jung believed there was an even rarer group. People whose entire psychological structure operates on a deeper, more complex level. For these individuals, emotions aren't just feelings, they are waves of information. Conversations aren't just words, they're doorways into hidden truths. And relationships aren't just connections, they're transformational encounters. This heightened depth can be both a gift and a curse. Because you perceive more, you feel more. Because you see through illusions, you can't unsee them. Many rare personalities spend years feeling exhausted, confused, or even depressed, not because they are weak, but because their awareness is far ahead of the world around them. Jung called this struggle the tension of opposites. The mind of a rare person holds multiple realities at once. You see both the beauty and the darkness of the world, and you carry both hope and pain in equal measure. This isn't instability, it's a sign of your psychological depth. The first sign of this rarity is emotional intensity. Jung discovered that these individuals experience what he called affectome complexes, meaning their emotions aren't fleeting moods, but deeply embedded experiences that shape how they see reality. You may sense tension in a room without a single word being spoken. You may pick up on someone's hidden pain before they ever admit it. You don't just feel, you absorb. And while the world may tell you this sensitivity is a weakness, Jung saw it as a form of intelligence. He believed emotional depth is not something to escape, but a gift to embrace. If emotional intensity and sacred curiosity mark the beginning of your rarity, the next signs reveal why life often feels like a lonely battlefield. Jung observed that rare personalities are defined not only by their depth, but also by their fierce independence. This doesn't mean you hate people or avoid connection. On the contrary, you often crave meaningful relationships more than anyone else, but you're wired to stand apart from the herd. You question rules that others follow blindly. You reject cultural scripts that dictate what happiness should look like. Jung believed this independence was a crucial sign of a highly individuated soul, someone who is in the process of becoming fully themselves, rather. than a reflection of what society expects. This journey of individuation is not easy. From childhood, rare individuals often sense that they are different. They may have been the ones who preferred books over small talk, who felt more at home in their imagination than in crowded rooms, or who asked uncomfortable questions that adults brushed aside. While others learned to follow the crowd, rare personalities began to carve their own path. Jung described this as the path of the few. The majority of people, he observed, prefer conformity because it feels safe. But for those who are destined to be rare, conformity feels like a slow death. This independence can lead to a deep sense of loneliness, especially in early life. You might wonder why friendships feel shallow, or why people seem uninterested in the questions that haunt you. But Jung insisted that this solitude isn't a sign of failure. It's a necessary stage of transformation. Just like a caterpillar retreats into a cocoon before becoming a butterfly, rare souls need solitude to integrate their depth. In Jung's words, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And to become who you are, you must often step away from the noise of the world. Another sign of your rarity is heightened intuition. Jung believed intuition was one of the highest psychological functions, allowing people to perceive patterns and truths that logic alone cannot explain. For rare personalities, intuition is not a vague feeling. It's a deeply attuned sense of reality. You might know when someone is lying without needing evidence. You might sense opportunities or dangers before they appear. You may even feel drawn towards certain paths in life without being able to explain why. Jung viewed this ability as a sign that you are in tune with the unconscious mind, the vast realm of instincts, archetypes, and collective wisdom that most people ignore. This intuition can make you seem otherworldly to others. While society often glorifies rational thinking, Jung argued that rationality alone is not enough to navigate life. The unconscious holds more wisdom than the conscious mind, and rare individuals often act as bridges between the two. Your insights may come to you in dreams, sudden flashes of clarity, or gut feelings that later prove correct. To Jung, this wasn't mysticism. It was advanced psychological functioning. He believed that rare people are deeply connected to what he called the collective unconscious, the shared well of symbols and truths that all of humanity draws from. But with this gift comes another challenge. The burden of meaning. Rare personalities rarely live on autopilot. You can't just work a job you hate, surround yourself with shallow relationships, or follow empty routines without feeling something inside you break. Jung observed that people like you are driven by an unrelenting need to find meaning in everything. Your work, your relationships, your struggles, even your suffering. This quest for meaning is not optional. It's your lifeline. Without it, you wither. With it, you thrive. This explains why so many rare individuals go through periods of deep depression or existential crisis.